Chapter 5. And they call it a mine. Viz Leany and High Tide arrived safely back in Rakosis on the 21st of the fourth moon. Captain Atala promised to be in touch with Sitara when he had news from the Council of Captains. Making port, the crew dispersed into the city. Nanako took her leave to resume her search for what had become of Mufaz. Akash, finding Tabari at the Purple Lantern, was startled when his brother shot to his feet and asked if he was aware of what had happened with his business interests. Making all speed to his shop, Akash found a letter from his mine foreman on his desk, detailing a series of tunnel collapses at his mine and asking for his prayers for the workers killed and missing in the tunnels. Akash rushed back to the ship to inform the captain of his situation. Without hesitation, Sitara lent him her support, offering to transport whatever was needed to his mines. Thanking her, he left to make the necessary arrangements.
Kasumi set about checking Akash's books to see what he could afford while Mezi kept an eye on the shop. Akash also called in favors from his connections, though they netted him less support than he was hoping. Late that night, upon returning to his shop, Mezi informed Akash that someone was watching his comings and goings. As they were wondering who could be behind it, there was a sharp rap at the door. The young swordswoman from the Festival of High Sun stood at the door, flanked by the Menzokan man, and Akash invited them in. Taking a cursory glance about his shop, she approached Mezi, inviting her to a friendly match again if she wished, before suggesting to Akash that they speak privately.
Once in his study upstairs, Sarai dropped the bag rather unceremoniously upon the table. Not one to mince words, she coolly demanded to know why he would leave her a gift of sword oils, first aid supplies, and an offer of employment after publicly decrying her at the festival. When Akash explained that he truly wished to know her better, to understand her goals, she was skeptical, finding it difficult to trust one who would change his tune so abruptly. He proclaimed that he saw great potential in her, though he worried she would waste it doing things like squandering her life on a silly competition, much to her amusement. Mezi, he said, had yielded the contest because she knew to save herself for worthier battles, such as the liberation of the slaves from Alkera's current regime. Akash then revealed that he was a member of the Brotherhood of the Watching Eye, and he had hoped to recruit her talent to the organization. While apparently familiar with the Brotherhood, Sarai seemed unimpressed, but Akash overlooked her rather palpable disdain and expounded on his hopes for the group. He desired to unite the disparate factions of the Brotherhood, though without the more unsavory elements, kidnappers, extortionists, murderers, and the like. When Sarai referred to his proposed plan as a culling, she was perplexed when he rejected out of hand the idea of such a violent solution. She heard out his vision of converting the Brotherhood from a loose network into a strong centralized organization. After conferring briefly with the Menzokan man in private, she agreed that they could indeed conduct business.
On their way out, Sarai seemed to take note of both Kasumi and Mezi. Approaching Mezi, she gave her a small slip with directions on how to reach her if she wished to take up her offer to spar. As she turned to leave, Sarai inquired whether the captain was aware of their business. Akash waved a hand dismissively. Of course the captain knew of his profitable enterprise as a master jewel crafter. In response to her quizzical look at the mound of paperwork before Kasumi, Akash briefly explained the recent situation at his mine. Realizing Akash was very much preoccupied with his own distractions, Sarai offered to procure muscle for his mine for a fair commission. The next morning at breakfast, Mezi found Sitara musing over her premonition about the mine before their voyage to the Maelstrom and whether it might be related to the collapses at Akash's mine. Contemplating the implications of the collapses, they recounted various events which occurred around that time, and wondered if perhaps it had something to do with Akash and Kasumi's sometimes enigmatic behavior. Mezi confided in the captain her suspicions, especially after the strange comments Sarai made while visiting Akash's shop. Perplexed as to why either Akash or the young swordswoman would agree to a business partnership after what happened at the festival, they agreed that something was amiss. Satara revealed that after several suggestions and exchanges that had struck her odd, she had shadowed the pair to various business establishments in Rakosis. Though she was uncertain how they were connected, she had observed what seemed to be coded exchanges and clandestine dealings. Though Satara cautioned her, Mezi decided to take Sarai up on her offer to spar, hoping to learn more of the mysterious swordswoman and perhaps glean some more information about their companions. The next day, Mezi went to the Swaying Serpent as per Sarai's instructions. When she attempted to leave word of her desired meeting time with the barkeep, he brusquely informed her that she should try her luck at the signpost just south of the southern gates in 4 hours' time. After finishing her drink, she went to Alim's shipyard to inform Satara of her meeting before finding a tavern near the southern gate to bide her time.
Meanwhile, Satara took her own path to the crossroads just south of Rakosis to scout out the area ahead of time. Finding a well-concealed spot off the road, she waited. As the meeting time drew closer, she spied the swordswoman and her companion making their way from the southern gate, but saw no sign of anyone else. As she crept through the wilderness, she accidentally upset some rocks and heard a strange call from nearby, which seemed to quicken the pair's pace on the road. Realizing she had been spotted, Satara came slowly out into the open. An Ashid man stepped softly out from the scrub nearby, bow and arrow drawn. As she stepped into the road, he kept an eye and a bead on Satara until Sarai and the Menzokin man approached, then disappeared stealthily into the brush once more. When questioned what she was doing there, the captain answered honestly that she had come to ensure her crew member was not walking into an ambush. Apparently unoffended, Sarai assured her it was safe for Mezi. Unless, of course, this was the ambush. Satara affirmed that she had come alone and only wished to see to the security of her crew, adding that Mezi was unaware she was here. She also noted Sarai and the Menzokin man carrying bundles of what she recognized as practice swords. Once the scout returned and signaled that the area was clear, Sarai seemed satisfied. She regarded the captain with a mild interest, and perhaps even respect, as Satara offered her arm and, tentatively, her trust, feeling the young swordswoman's intentions were, in fact, honorable. They parted ways peacefully, and Satara headed back along the beach, no longer feeling anxious, but remaining in earshot all the same.
Mezi arrived punctually at the southern signpost, where she found Sarai and the Menzokin men waiting for her, carrying wrapped bundles on their backs. Heading further south before taking a path off the road, they conversed as they walked. Sarai inquired about the trouble at the mine and Akash, including the nature of his and Mezi's relationship. Mezi explained his defensiveness at the festival as camaraderie and acknowledged Sarai as the victor of their contest. While Mezi felt they all had underestimated the terms of yielding, Sarai intimated it was she who had been underestimated. As the Menzokin man pulled out the training weapons and they began to put on pads, Sarai asked about Mezi's martial training in Alkira. Mezi explained she appreciated the discipline required for combat arts, but did not care for its use in aggressive conquest. When Sarai prodded Mezi about her history, she told the story of why she had left Alkira. After debating the differences between being lawful versus morally right, Sarai asked if Mezi did what she did to spare the rebel's family, or if she had believed he was right. Mezi admitted it had been both. As they began to spar, Mezi attempted to learn from Sarai's defensive style of sword fighting, of drawing, deflecting, and countering in smooth motions. Sarai continued, wondering what Mezi would have done if she hadn't agreed with the rabble-rouser's point of view, or if his methods had been wrong. When Mezi became flustered by her questions, Sarai explained she was curious about what sort of person she truly was, though she believed Mezi to have a strong sense of honor and justice, even under great pressure. Mezi asked if Sarai had ever reached her own breaking point. Sarai indicated she believed she had, and she had come out the better for it. Mezi also thought she had come out the better, even though her society might not agree. Admitting that it had bothered her at first, Mezi knew she had done the right thing and felt self-acceptance should be enough. Sarai argued that people would see the truth through one's actions rather than one's words. While Mezi could prove her society wrong, Sarai thought it unlikely, pointing out that breaking their laws is exactly what made her a criminal, rather than an eccentric going against societal norms. In response to Sarai's question of how Mezi would go about changing her countrymen's minds, Mezi could not answer, though she felt hopeful that things would work themselves out. Finding Mezi's outlook optimistic, Sarai noted that she was perhaps similar to Akash, as both appeared to hope for great change without embracing the necessities that must accompany them. Sarai questioned Akash's belief that Mezi had yielded their fight because she was saving herself for a greater battle to bring an end to slavery in Al-Kira. Mezi admitted she was unsure of her goals beyond wishing to unify Ta'atoan expatriates. Wondering why Akash would envision Mezi as a revolutionary, Sarai was impressed to learn that they had attacked a Ta'atoan assault barge, but disappointed when Mezi conceded she would not have attacked them purely based on her political stance. Believing that Akash projected his own ideas onto Mezi, Sarai concluded that neither of them had the guts to be a revolutionary. Taking Sarai's blunt response to heart, Mezi finally voiced the fear that she would be unable to change things. Sarai confronted her with the reality of being a revolutionary and asked if she was ready for everything that would come with it. After some consideration, Mezi confirmed she believed she was ready. When Sarai emphasized the necessity for allies as well as self-conviction, Mezi confided that she was not certain some of her allies were being entirely transparent, inquiring about Sarai's comment at Akash's shop regarding his other business. Sarai noted the oddities of the crew's apparent professional relationships with one another and asked whether it was the first time Mezi had questioned their trustworthiness. Admitting Akash and Kasumi had been secretive before, Mezi still wondered if it was just her imagination. Sarai advised Mezi to mind her instincts, that her awareness would keep her alive.
Early on the morning of the 25th, Viz Leany set sail north, heading for the mountain road which led to Akash's mine, fully loaded with supplies and men. Aleem had loaded the ship with a batch of timber suitable for reinforcing mining tunnels, as well as the wagons and draft animals to haul them. Sarai too had held up her end of the bargain with Akash, sending a decent number of rough-looking men to assist at the mine. On the 2nd of the 5th moon, they arrived at the junction of the coastal and mountain roads, where the crew unloaded the supplies onto the wagons and set out for Akash's mine. Kanuki, Vendela, Diallo, Jian, Emrys, and Midi volunteered to accompany the party and workers, while the rest were to return with Viz Leany to Rakosis. Along the way, the party kept an ear out for news, but heard nothing of note about the other mining ventures along the mountain road, nor were there any reports of significant changes in mine output. Late on the evening of the 20th, the caravan arrived at Akash's mine, much to his workers' surprise. As they quickly set about unloading the caravan, Akash spoke with his foreman, Murakib Imol Itimad bin Sohei Joshi, and discovered that the problems had begun several weeks ago and had steadily grown worse. With the present crew following into Itimad's office, everyone learned how dire the situation seemed to be. Not only had newer tunnels collapsed, but also a well-established tunnel, and recently one of the main branches of the mine. With Akash eager to investigate, the crew took up lanterns and set off towards the mine, though Sitara was visibly nervous about venturing in. Itimad led the party down to explore Akash's mine. Realizing it was surprisingly deep, the party passed by many different tunnels, including those that had collapsed.
While on their way out, the group realized Akash was no longer with them. He had stepped into a side tunnel and attempted to commune with the mine. Feeling oppressed and more than a little unsettled, he was found by Kasumi and escorted out of the mine. Upon exiting, Kasumi took to looking at the mine's ledgers and worker reports to see who was involved in the mine collapses, who had reported strange happenings, and anyone who seemed out of place. The rest of the party socialized with those miners still awake, and eventually got some rest. The next morning, Akash helped prepare breakfast for his men while Kasumi began interviewing the miners. Over the course of the day, Kasumi learned that there had been 7 new miners who had joined the crew within the last few months. Though none of them reported any mining experience, the veteran miners all reported that they learned their skills very quickly. Despite this, the veterans described at length about how things seemed to have been progressing slower, not running as smoothly as usual. Their tools, for example, seemed to wear out more quickly. Several of the men, particularly those who had survived or been nearby when the cave-ins occurred, spoke of unsettling feelings and strange echoes coming from within the inactive parts of the mine. They reported the rock giving way in unusual and unpredictable ways, and the mine often feeling less stable than normal. Deciding to examine the equipment, Akash and Kasumi realized that many of the tools kept in the workers' shed were malformed in some minor way. Pick tips were rounded or angled slightly off on the shaft. Wedges were blunted. Cart axles were bent. The pair sought out the mine's smith, Shakir, at his forge, a large man covered in soot, dust, and bushy hair. He initially blamed the strange happenings on the miners not paying proper respect to the Jinn. When Akash and Kasumi showed him that many of the tools he created were defective, the smith took offense before they shared their theory that the tools may have been sabotaged. Shakir promised to keep their suspicion secret before the pair left to continue their investigation. Speaking with Vendala, Akash and Kasumi learned that the wood used for the mine was sturdy and well cut, though what had been pulled from the collapsed tunnels was far too damaged to ascertain why it had failed. She agreed that it could have been sabotaged, though she admitted there were many ways in which it could have been done, and it would be very difficult to detect.
Meanwhile, Sitar and Mezi set out with the hunters to examine the lay of the land. Traveling across rugged terrain, the pair learned that while there were a number of small homesteads and retreats scattered throughout the mountains, none were nearby. They caught some small game for dinner, but found no signs of anyone else in the mountains above the mine. Over the course of their hike, they contemplated who or what could be behind the mine collapses. Wondering if perhaps it had something to do with Akash's involvement in secret activities, they worried that he may have somehow angered the Jinn and been cursed.
As everyone gathered for dinner, Kasumi proposed that they return to the mine to see if anything felt off in a spiritual sense. Satara and Mezi questioned his line of thinking, with Satara believing it foolhardy to risk provoking the divine any further. When Satara refused to go back to the mine, Mezi agreed to chaperone the men in hopes of keeping them out of trouble. The trio informed Idamon of their plan to return to the mine. Though confused, Idamon agreed to lead them through the tunnels.
Questioning the foreman, the trio learned that the miners were mindful in their prayers, and that there had been no lapse of faith, despite what the smith had indicated. As the four approached the mine, they noticed a pair of figures on the hillside above, and the faintest light of sparks. Akash, recognizing the larger of the figures as Kanuki, realized they were likely lighting incense in prayer for the group. Feeling reassured, the four entered the mine. As they passed through the tunnels, the party paid particular attention to the engravings at each branch, and it appeared the icons were being kept with due diligence. Akash decided he wished to explore the section of the mine where his workers had excavated the strange gems he had received just prior to joining the crew. Descending deep into the tunnels, Itamad led them through a series of narrow passages and into a natural cavern with a multitude of short tunnels branching off of it. As the party explored the chamber, Akash attempted to commune with the mine using the 3 remaining stones he still carried from it. As he took a seat to pray, the party began to feel a sense of unease. Itamad stepped into the main cavern just as the party heard a series of loud noises from the tunnel leading out. His shouts were drowned out by the sound of crashing rock.